is Dan Morrison
And Sam Bushman.
for Candid Gaming's review of Final Fight Double Impact for the PlayStation Network.
In the current digital distribution marketplace, many developers are choosing to make original games that are in a retro style, using sprite-based graphics or even vector art. But developer proper games, instead of doing that, wanted to bring a classic from the arcades in the 1990s to the present, and this is what Final Fight Double Impact is. It's a small collection that consists of an arcade port of Final Fight and Magic Sword, another Capcom title. Both games are side-scrolling beat-em-ups that allow for two players to fight wave after wave of enemies. And this pair was something I really enjoyed about this collection. Both Magic Sword and Final Fight are meant to be side-scrolling beat-em-ups, which makes sense to put them together. And furthermore, because of the fast pace and the varied levels and even the varying styles of Magic Sword being fantasy-based and Final Fight being this gritty action film style, it made for a really interesting evening of enjoyment. Two buddies who had played one or two of the games previously when they were originally in the arcades can come back, relive a little bit of nostalgia, and reminisce on good times and have a good night of gaming.
Yeah, these are both two good coin gobblers that you probably might have played once or twice in the arcade, but you probably never went through and beat the entire game. And it's very fun to go ahead and go back and just try to play through the game with unlimited credits. It's one of those kind of fun things to go back to do.
Yeah, it definitely is. And even beyond that, just having the buddy next to you was really fun. I also appreciate how, if you didn't have a buddy to play with, they had hot swap online multiplayer for both games, which was extremely smooth. It used the PlayStation Network's friends list that you had in your account. You'd select a player, invite them in, or even leave it open for any guy to hop in your game. There was no lag for me, no dropout. It was just like they're sitting next to me. And utilizing the PlayStation Network's voice chat with the Bluetooth headset, it might as well have been them sitting next to me. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a very well done. The invite system works pretty well, and you had no problems. I had a few small hang-ups, but nothing too substantial. Another thing I really liked about it is how it had a really good authenticity to the port. They went ahead and remixed the music, made it a little bit better. They sharpened up the textures, and they went ahead and even included the arcade cabinets. And this is a detail that I really liked with this.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the appreciation to detail. You can approach either of these cabinets, study the side art a little bit, look at the panels, and I even went into some of the screen options they provided. You could play the game with the marquees around the edge of your screen, or you could full screen it, or you could keep the original aspect ratio. They really intended for this to be a port for many different audiences. You had the nostalgic people that were hardcore in the arcades with the marquees. You had the tech guys in mind who were like, hey, I want this original aspect ratio, or I want to fit my entire widescreen I spent thousands of dollars on. They really made sure that they kept the authenticity, add just a little bit extra to give it some money value, and try to please everybody.
Not only that, they added a little funny CRT mode that allows you to have the scan lines, the flicker, and the kind of silhouette edging, kind of the whole thing with that. And it's that small attention to detail that kind of just shows just what they're intending. The other thing with the whole nostalgic feel of this game is that it adds on this whole big vault of a bunch of small graphics, novels, and even a little small cartoon just to kind of add to the features of this game that you can unlock through playing the game. And I really liked that.
Yeah, I really appreciate the perspective it provided with giving you concept art with how the sprites were set up for the different arcade machines. It showed some modern comics that they had done, introducing Final Fight characters into some other Capcom-based IPs. And like you said, the Street Fighter cartoon from the 1990s was another throwback for everyone who grew up with it. Admittedly, Magic Sword's vault was rather empty looking. It was only 3 pages, and there were very few on each page. Final Fight was obviously the labor of love of this game, but in a lot of ways it feels like Magic Sword is kind of tacked on.
I would have to agree. It felt that Magic Sword, while being a fun and full-featured game, it felt like it was kind of pushed to the side, at least on this release, and it wasn't given as much publicity. If you look at the advertising campaign for this game, it's all Final Fight. You don't even see Magic Sword even mentioned until 3 minutes into it. It's oh yeah, and it has Magic Sword. It just kind of felt like an afterthought, and the vault kind of shows off it as an afterthought, and it's there. It's just, it felt like it was kind of thrown on at the last minute.
And that was disappointing because I really think Magic Sword's worth its weight just as much as Final Fight is. It's a different experience in Final Fight. It's a lot more fast-paced. It's all about defeating blind waves of enemies, constantly changing up power-ups, unlike Final Fight, which is all about a linear progression. There's even hidden doors. It's a branching experience as opposed to Final Fight's straight linear experience.
It's a dungeon crawler. It's very similar, kind of like Gauntlet, Golden Axe. It kind of has that more of a feel to it. The one thing I found with that game that it's just a very cluttered game. It's not the same. It feels like, even though they're both fighting games, you'll find that there's a lot of clutter in like Magic Sword. As you're going around, you got your friendly there, you got your buddy there, you got 4 guys that are just your party going on there, shooting magic particles everywhere, and it is just a mess.
Yeah, and one thing that didn't help either is with all that clutter on the screen, the achievement GUI ended up getting in the way whenever you'd accomplish something. Maybe you'd unlock a secret level, or you'd progress to a certain point in the game, and this big bloaty blob of text pops up right in the middle of your screen, or even covering up your health GUI, telling you that you achieved something. While I appreciate having achievements, and it really helps for the replayability, when it gets in the way of the core game, it's more of a nuisance than it's worth.
That's one thing that did get bothersome with the Volt thing. Another thing is that this game really doesn't offer too much to configure your controls, which, honestly, in a game that only has 2 buttons, you wouldn't have to control too much. But when I got like this thing, like this Fight Stick 3, the way the buttons are configured on it, here, I'm showing this, that you basically have to go ahead and use X and triangle, or you can go ahead and use square and circle. The problem is that they're diagonal of each other, and I don't know, it's a small minor gripe, but I really like using this controller. It made the game a lot more authentic to me, but I do wish that I could at least configure up the controls to get the buttons next to each other instead of doing them diagonally.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the controls were fine on the gamepad. I didn't use a game stick, so I have no idea. But I can understand what you're saying. Configurable controls would be very helpful, especially if you're maybe trying to put this game into a cabinet and try to recreate that experience for that super hardcore nostalgic crowd. Well, I mean, the only other thing that really bugged me about this game, I said that the co-op and drop-in was really great, and I really appreciated the online support, but the local multiplayer of all things had a bug in it, where if you had a partner playing locally on your machine complete the game, let it run through its cinematic, it pops you back out to the screen where you show the marquee with the screen, and then you can hit circle to go back to the main menu. Neither player has control over the menu. You hit up and down, you try X, triangle, anything you can to get to a different menu. Nothing responds. Every time that happened, both Magic Sword and Final Fight, I had to quit out of the game using the PlayStation button and hop back in and restart the game. While this is kind of a minor gripe because the game itself is not affected, it is kind of annoying if you want to play both games in sequence, just because you have to quit out.
I didn't experience this bug, but then again, I didn't play with a friend locally to really do this, but I could see that it is a pretty bad problem to have in such a game.
Yeah. But like I said, at the very least, the games themselves were not buggy. You could play from beginning to end of both of these games and explore the vault without any issues. It was just the transition between them that was sometimes problematic.
And one thing I was missing from this port was that there wasn't the winners don't do drugs. Do you remember that whole campaign on arcades?
Yes, I do. And I can thank those for this day, me not being on drugs.
But it's that little sticker there that you just missed. It's not in the credits, and I'm like, where'd it go? It's nothing. It's not going to make a difference, but it's that little hint that's just kind of missing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know what? They tried really hard for the nostalgia factor regardless. And for me, the combination of having 2 solid local co-op games with online support, even with what little bit they provide in the vault for Magic Sword, having content for both that you could look behind the scenes a little bit for each game, having the jam and music, it kept right on track with how the games used to play. I think it's worth every penny for the $10. It was very accurately priced for me. I wouldn't want to pay any more because there's only 2 games, but I think it's worth $10 because of the polish that's on them.
For the amount of quarters that I would have physically put into this game, I would say that $10 is a steal, because I probably coin gobbled so much crap into this thing. And honestly, if you like Final Fight or you like Magic Sword, honestly, this review is not going to phase you. You're going to buy the game regardless.
The one thing I would say, though, I really wish this was something that was offered on a platform other than digital distribution. Because of the length of both games, this would make for a fun rental just as much as a purchase. While I recommend that $10 is a fine price for it, if I had the choice between this and a rental, I probably would have gone with the rental just because I'm going to play it through the weekend with my buddies. We're going to be jamming out and having a good time. But then after that, it's going to be put away in my hard drive for a while. Alright, well, that's all we have to say for this week. Thanks for tuning in. As always, please leave comments, suggestions, any information you want at the bottom of the page, and we'll be happy to read it and give you feedback. Have a good evening.